All right, so I wanted to take some time to kind of give an overview of Copilot and Power Automate. There's a lot of pretty cool stuff that it can do, and it's gotten way better than it was originally. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So when you first log into Power Automate, you're met with this main screen here. Um, Obviously, you can see that Copilot dominates the majority of the screen when you first log in, and that's obviously the way of things with Microsoft now. Copilot on all the things, whether you like it or not, and regardless of your opinion, it's there. You got to get used to it, and you got to figure out the best way to make use of it. Um, in Power Automate, it does a pretty good job of helping you to create a flow, to pick the right connectors, to put in your initial layout for your flow. Obviously, it doesn't do everything for you. You're gonna have to set up the connections. You're gonna have to tweak some things. Obviously, set up the configuration of things and make sure that everything is working the way that you want to. So they give you like a couple examples here of things that you're doing. So let's just try an example here. So when I receive an email that has an attachment, save that attachment to my OneDrive folder. Let's just start with that as a basic example. So when you click, generate, it'll start working through it. It'll say, okay, it's trying to figure out what is it you're trying to accomplish, and it will come up with a suggested flow to start with here, as you can see. So in this particular one, it's got a trigger, when an email arrives in your Outlook folder, um, look at that. If it has an attachment, then save the attachment uh, to your OneDrive. Well, okay, as you can see here, there's a couple of things that I might want to change for that. And if you want to, if you want to keep going with that, you can. Sometimes, a lot of times, it'll give you multiple versions of Flow. So you can see this is version 1 of 2, and we can look at the next suggestion here. So you can see this one is slightly different. Obviously, when the new email arrives, do a for each, and it creates a file in OneDrive for Business. So let's go back here and see just a little different. In this particular case, it's getting the attachment first and then saving it. And this one's just saving it directly. Minor nuance, and you can generate that and take a look at it and see what it comes up. But what if you don't really like what it does? So you can come back up here in the top and you can make some changes. What if I'm not using OneDrive for Business? What if I want a personal OneDrive? So in my personal OneDrive folder, and we'll say that is a PDF file. So if the attachment is a PDF file, save it to my OneDrive personal folder. Then you click the submit, and it'll start going through it again. And it'll take a moment here. Okay, so here's a little bit different version. You can see it only created one version this time. But you can see it still gets some things wrong. So it's saying OneDrive for Business again. Well, I don't want OneDrive for Business, so we'll try to tweak it again here. But you're saying, it's going to go through each of the emails. It's going to look for attachments. It's going to do a condition, which I'm assuming is going to check to see if that attachment is a PDF file, and it's OneDrive for Business here. So maybe, it didn't understand personal folder. Let's try that. Just see if it comes up with something different. Obviously, it doesn't always, see it again, it got it wrong. But, like I say, it's not perfect, but, obviously this is going to create a big chunk of the architecture for you. So if I just say keep it and continue, and, maybe I'm going to change that. So we can just go ahead and create the flow. It'll set it up for you. So we've got the one each, so it's going to look through all the attachments. It's going to look at the condition. If the name ends with .pdf, so it's looking for a PDF file. If it's true, then create the file. Now what I would do here, if obviously, this has saved me a bunch of steps, so it is helpful. I mean, it's not perfect. So what I would do here is I would delete this and instead add, OneDrive for business. Come down here to OneDrive by itself and do the create file there. So I just replace the wrong one with the right one. Well, okay, maybe I've got this one that's already created here. So let's say, what if I want to make some changes and use Copilot to make some changes to my flow here? So you can just click the Copilot button. If it's, usually by default, it'll always appear over here. If it doesn't, you can just click the OneDrive button, the Copilot button here, and it'll pop up over here on the side. And or if you can ask a question, you can describe how you want to change this flow, and say, okay, if the file is less than 100 kilobytes, do not save it. Let's see what it does with that. So it'll take what you're entering in there, and it will add a little bit of a change here. So again, you can see it not quite right. So it added a condition to check the file size, and you can see it doesn't know how to do that, so you're going to have to add that condition yourself. But you can also see that it didn't put it in the right spot. So what I would do here, and again, it's saving you some time because it's putting in the condition, but it's also fairly easy to edit things. So I would just drag the create file over here, and then I would add to the condition here a way to check it to see if it's bigger than 100 kilobytes. And if it is, I would save it. If not, don't save it. Okay, but you can also see here the response that it gave back. So it says, okay, I removed this action, create file. I updated this condition. I added a condition file size. And it reminds you, hey, look at each of the actions that I added and update the parameters if they need to be set, which most of the time you're going to need to set some of the parameters here. So there's those kinds of things. So we can zoom out a little bit here so you can get kind of a view. So there's a number of different changes here. And if you don't like what it did, you can click undo, and it will change it back to the state that it was before that. Let's go ahead and just discard this for the moment. And we'll go back home here. And okay, let's try something else. Let's try something a little bit more complicated. Let's say when I receive an email from, say, from my boss, move that email to the junk mail folder and respond to my boss with an email that says sure thing. That's a funny little one here. Let's see what it comes up with here. So you can see it started with the basic here. It's, of course, again, it's giving me two different examples. See, this one is actually using Office 365, okay, and saying, hey, go to my Office profile, check to see if this is from my boss, using, the setup that's in Outlook or in Office 365, and if it is my boss, then do those things. Whereas the first version here, it's relying on you, I'm sure, to specify who your boss is. This one's a little bit better in a work environment, obviously, because if your boss changes, if it's using this particular setup, then you don't have to go in and change your flow to put in your new boss's email address like you would have to with this version. So it's kind of handy that it understands that little thing. But let's make some changes here. Let's say after that, add a meeting to my calendar for the next business day at 8 a.m. for 1 hour, titled Scream at the Walls in frustration. Now let's see what it comes up with here. So in this one, you've got when the email arrives, move it, or move the email, check to see if it was from my manager. Obviously, this one's not quite right because I want to see if it's from my manager first, and then only move it then in that particular case. But again, this is filling in some of the basic steps, and it gives you a head start on what it would need to do. Let's just cancel that. Let's go back home here. How about when a new file is created in OneDrive folder, copy that file to Box and send an email to myself with the file details, and then post to Teams chat channel that the file has arrived. So again, making things a little more complicated, a little more complex. So you can see here when a file is created, send it to Box, get my profile, send myself an email, post a message to a chat Teams channel. So you can see, it gets a lot of the basics. And, if I go ahead and keep it and continue, obviously, with the connectors, I haven't got a Box connector set up for this particular account. So it'll ask you to sign in here. It can also ask you to select the account that you want to work with. So if you have more than one account, you can select which account you want it to connect to. Let's see, for each of these, I've only got the one account set up with this particular flow system. But it's not perfect. It gives you a place to start with, really, and it saves you some time because it'll suggest things that you didn't quite think of. You just have to have a pretty good understanding of what it is that you want to accomplish with the flow, and from there, it gives you a really good head start on creating those flows. So Copilot is useful. It is handy. It is a time saver. It makes you more efficient, and especially with Power Automate. It can do a lot of stuff, and it's still, it's not perfect. It gets some things wrong, like all AI does. AI gets a lot of stuff wrong. It's far from perfect, but in this particular case, especially with Power Automate, it can give you a great head start. And a lot of times, those little efficiencies are really great things.